The 36th Kinnah, Tzion Halo Tishali, is one of the best-known Kinnos, but it's actually not known for being a Kinnah. It is a beautiful poem written by Rev Yehuda Halevi, who was a Spanish poet and lover of Tzion par excellence. There's many beautiful descriptions of being in Eretz Yisrael, and later he talks about some sad things. How can food and drink taste pleasant to me when I witness the dogs dragging away your youth who are like young lions? So we are usually used to Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's poems being very upbeat and positive about Yerushalayim. We are not as accustomed to or exposed to his poems that describe sadness. He wrote many poems, maybe they're elegies, not the same kinos that we call kinos, for very sad things that happened in Spain when he was there. But there is certainly an element of sadness that he mentions in this Kinnah. One of the main themes about it, and actually one of his lines is well known for being copied in Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Ani Kinor L'Shirayach, I am a harp to your songs. But he talks about the holy places where the Shekhinah was, and the glory of Hashem was your light. So I want to mention a few points here. This seems to be, he says, there is no star or sun or stars that are your light. That seems to be in accordance with the opinion of the Ramban. The Ramban says that Eretz Yisrael is different than other lands because all other lands have some type of constellation or planet which controls them, but Eretz Yisrael is unique, that Hashem himself is in control of the land. Therefore, the Ramban says the land is not able to have sinners inside of it. And that's how he explains the pasuk, the land will spit out the inhabitants when they violate the commandments of the Torah. So this seems to be, he seems to have the same opinion as the Ramban about this. He talks also about visiting the burial places in Eretz Yisrael. He says, even though I stand by the graves of my patriarchs or my ancestors, I behold in sheer wonderment the choices of the burial sites in Hebron, Har Havarim, and Har Hahar, the resting places of the two great lights. So it also talks about even the burial places within Eretz Yisrael are very special. Hebron, obviously, where the Avos, Avram and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah are buried. And we'll come back to Har Hahar in a moment. But I want to mention a couple things that points and counterpoints are how we usually understand this Kinnah and some possible alternate ways of understanding it. The first line is Tzion Halo Tishali Lishlam Asirayich. We usually say, Tzion, will you not inquire about the welfare of your imprisoned? A few lines down, we have another, a few lines down, it says, Ushlam Asir Tikva Nosein Dema'av Ketal Hermon. And the welfare of the prisoner who is yet full of hope and gives forth his tears like the dew of Mount Hermon. If Asirayach, prisoner, is really in the first line, why does he repeat it a few words later? I'm wondering if it's not using a poetic version of a pasuk in Yirmiyah chapter 15, verse 5. The pasuk says, who will have pity on you, Yerushalayim, and who will move for you, and who will be turned to ask about your peace. Umi asur lishol lishalom lach. So I'm wondering if he took Yerushalayim from that pasuk and he switched it to Tzion, and instead of being mi asur, who turned to you, he said asirayach, even though it sounds like the word prisoner, but maybe he means those who turn to you. And he's saying, Yerushalayim, aren't you going to respond to those who turn to you? Bnei Yisrael daven towards you every day. Counterpoint is, the point is, if Yerushalayim, you would know how much we care about you, you would care, you would care back at us. But Yerushalayim is not an adamant object to respond. However, counterpoint, we saw earlier in the keynotes how Yerushalayim, in the guise of an old woman, came to Yirmiyahu. So perhaps Yerushalayim can respond. And perhaps the beginning here is a sad and saying, Yerushalayim, even though we are crying out to you, you're not responding. The sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe in Likutei Diburim has a thing that thinking about someone makes a connection. And perhaps this Kinnah is saying that it's not so true. Not everyone agrees with that, with Likutei Diburim. it talks about that the places where that Eretz Yisrael is special because of the Shekhinah. So Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's own opinion is, he discusses in the Kuzari, that Eretz Yisrael is unique because that's the place where people can get nevuah, prophecy. So on one hand, I think point is that Eretz Yisrael is special because the Shekhinah is there, and it has potential of us reaching certain heights and certain accomplishments because the Shekhinah is there. But as a counterpoint, something we don't usually think of, perhaps he's saying Eretz Yisrael is special because prophets were there, and because who knows who walked at this particular place where I am, perhaps a Navi was there, it is endowed with Kedusha. The Drashos Haran asks the question, why did Hashem ask Moshe to talk to the rock but take his staff if he only wanted Moshe to not to hit it? So why did he take the staff? So he answers, since previously the miracle of water coming happened with the staff acquired some of the godly influence of that miracle, and he was supposed to bring the staff, not to use the staff, but just it would be easier for the miracle to happen again when this object through which a miracle happened before was there. So it could be that he's praising Yerushalayim, not just Eretz Yisrael, not just for its potential for greatness, but because the actual greatness was there. Even the stones of Eretz Yisrael have special kedusha because perhaps the Navi stepped on those. And then finally, about the grave sites. So we mentioned Chevron, where it's the Ma'ar Samach Pela, but then he also mentions Har HaAvarim and Hor HaHor. Now this is very strange, because Har HaAvarim is the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Hor HaHor is the birthplace of Aaron HaKohen. But why were Aaron and Moshe punished that they died in the desert? They were punished. Their punishment was they will not reach the land of Israel. From Rabbi Yehuda Halevi putting that in this Kinnah, he is saying that they are part of Eretz Yisrael. How is it possible if they were punished, their punishment was they will not enter Eretz Yisrael, that Rabbi Yehuda Halevi considers it part of Eretz Yisrael? So as a counterpoint, as I mentioned before, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi holds that Eretz Yisrael is unique because it's a place of nevuah. If you look in the Kuzari in two sections, in book 2, section 14, and book 4, section 3, that's a very long piece, but towards the end, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi holds that the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael were very, very large. He uses a pasuk from Parshas Mishpatim, not the pasuk in Parshas Maseh that we're talking about the borders of Eretz Yisrael that were split up by the different tribes. So it seems that Rabbi Yehuda Halevi's opinion is that Eretz Yisrael is defined as Eretz Yisrael by the boundaries which were promised to Avraham. And the boundaries which were promised to Avraham were much broader and much greater and larger than the boundaries which were conquered and divided in the time of Yehoshua. So Har Sinai and places where Moshe Rabbeinu received nevuah, according to Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, those were all parts of Eretz Yisrael, and that's how nevuah was possible in those places. So we have to say, according to Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, and according to our other Rishonim with similar opinions, is that Eretz Yisrael, which was promised to Avraham, was much greater than the Eretz Yisrael, which was actually conquered. So the fact that he mentions the burial places of Moshe and Aaron, which are outside of what we consider Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Yehuda Halevi has to agree that there's a difference between Eretz Yisrael, which was eventually conquered, and not. Because if not, how were the inhabitants of the wilderness punished by not being able to enter the land and crossing the Jordan River if they were in Eretz Yisrael, which was Eretz Yisrael for prophecy? So we have to say that they had a status of Eretz Yisrael from the fact that they were promised to Avraham and that prophecy was given in those lands, but they weren't the full Eretz Yisrael because they weren't the lands that were eventually conquered in the time of Yoshua. Now, even according to opinions who don't agree with that, they agree that in the time of Mashiach, the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael will be enlarged to include the lands of Kinnah, Knizi, and Kadmoni. May our crying and being sad and feeling close to Yerushalayim allow Mashiach to come b'mher v'yameinu. Amen.